What's going on, lads and lasses? Welcome back to Error 404. Today we're going to be talking about types of hackers, so strap in and enjoy, because we're just going to get straight into it today, no fucking around, because frankly, who has the time to record a video 5 fucking times? Thank you very much, recording software, for that one.
No. Anyway, last week...
Anyway, we're going to start today by talking about the 3 main reasons why someone might hack. We're going to briefly cover them in a somewhat degree of detail, and then we're going to lean into each category of hacker that I can think of that I've researched, and we'll just get on with it and it'll sort of make sense as we go on. So we'll start off with harm. So the harm category is defined as people who act unlawfully, who are in it for profit, are often career criminals, who basically want to extort, get the data that they want, and then sell it at a profit.
Hello, I like money.
They also can use, as I mentioned there, extortion tactics. So this would be where ransomware becomes common. They are basically criminal hackers whose only and sole intention is to make everyone else's lives miserable while making as much profit or as much nuisance of themselves as possible. A great example of this would be Astra, a hacker who got arrested in Greece in 2002. Basically the long and short of the story, because it is obviously a hell of a lot longer than this, but the short version of it is this. He or she caused $360 million US, yeah, that figure is correct, of damage and various other expenses to a French company who had military and aviation or flying subsidiary companies, including stealing information that pertained to a weapon system. I don't have to tell you how bloody well dangerous that could be. The group that he attacked was the Dassault Group, which, from my assumption at least, having had subsidiary companies, would be a hedge fund of some description, or indeed a bigger company buying out loads of little ones and having sort of a portfolio business, I suppose, a holding company if you will. Astra, as I mentioned, stole $360 million worth of that information, and had it fallen into the wrong hands, which I believe it probably would have done, means that goodbye, sleep well tonight, because this could go really badly. If you've learned hacking in school, you've probably heard of 3 different types of hackers. First one being the black hats, which fall under the harm category. The second one, probably you will have heard of, called the white hats. Now I'll briefly discuss what the white hats are. So these are under the help category because these guys are ethical hackers. They are hired by companies primarily, so this would be your likes of a Microsoft, your Apple. Basically any big tech business, I suppose, has white hats in some capacity. And all they are used for is to spot flaws that black hats might exploit, report back to the parent company that hired them in order for them to fix the issue, or indeed they are hired to fix the issue for them. If they've spotted the issue, they know how to fix it, they will more than likely be hired as both a white hat hacker, as someone to assess the situation, as well as someone to basically produce the patches. I suppose that is kind of where white hats are at their very best. A great example would be Kevin Mitnick. Now he was a former black hat, granted, so maybe you could class him as the third category I'm going to talk about in a second. But he has since his black hat days were over, started his own cybersecurity firm, which helps big companies defend against black hat attacks, against brute force attacks, various different things. And his firewall, I believe, is known as one of the best in the world because, again, he knows what he's doing. He's not stupid. He knows exactly what holes are likely to be exploited, and he is, of course, a technical genius. But a black hat turned a white hat could possibly be a grey hat, which is the third category I'm going to talk about, and is kind of the middle ground between the two. What makes them the middle ground is what's very interesting, because you could realistically class them as black hats but lesser known, but I don't think that's a fair title because of one simple reason. The difference between a black hat and a grey hat is that, yes, okay, grey hats will sell information for profit like black hats do, And yes, they will also potentially do very illegal things. They will use illegal methods. But the differentiation point is they will very often be the other side of the fence, where they actually help someone but they don't ask for permission. So for example, Gary McKinnon, who was a hacker over here in the UK, NASA wanted him extradited to the USA. Theresa May's government rightfully refused that extradition because he hacked into NASA for wanting to find proof of UFOs. It was an innocent hack, if you will. There was no real victims, apart from NASA having their tail between their legs. He didn't want to steal any information. He wasn't intent on trying to sell the information that he found for profit. He was just curious. He wanted to find out. And that's why you define him as a grey hat, because he didn't want to cause harm. He just knew he could do it. He hacked in. And that's all he was looking for. He wasn't looking for something to sell. He was looking because he was curious. And because he could do it as well, it meant that it was easy for him to, instead of asking for permission and getting hired, just to do it himself. Now, rather badass, to be honest, but he left a note for NASA to find, which is again another common trait of grey hats, where they leave a little bit of a advice slip, like a post-it note. Oh yeah, by the way, this is how I got in. He left a note saying your security is crap. So, yeah, quite savage from the man, and to be fair, that is British culture for you. So, yeah, we have a habit of breaking into things, but we're normally black hats, we normally colonise everything. Anyway, moving on. We'll go back to the help category, actually, because there's a couple more categories, or a couple more hat colours that I want to talk about. Lesser known ones, granted, but the reason why I've put them here is because they don't technically help, harm, or they're not middle ground either. So I will just kind of put it as an undefined subcategory, and that being purple hats and green hats. Purple hats are hackers who want to hack their own systems for two reasons that I can think of. One being to improve their own security measures, and secondly, to improve and hone their hacking skill. Now, this is a common tactic used by a lot of different hackers. Grey hats will commonly do this as well, albeit grey hats are a lot more experienced and actually have an intention behind it. Now, this is where the water gets a little bit muddy, because technically you could argue that the purple hats could be black hats, could be white hats, could be grey hats, but because they are trainees, they are honing their skills. We can't put them in either of those categories because there's no intention. When they get more experience, when they've honed them skills, then it becomes more clear, because it depends what pathway they're choosing to go into. Hence why I put them in help, because it is the least harmful of the categories. The second one being green hats, because these guys are just trainee hackers. These are guys that are trying to learn the tricks of the trade. Again, they don't particularly have an intention behind them. They are of no harm, help, or a middle ground to anyone, and therefore they should be undefined as well. The more dangerous side is in the middle ground. Now, the middle ground has two different types of hackers that I feel could be dangerous, but also very helpful. The first one is blue hats. Blue hats are white hats, but their sole intention of hacking is revenge or vengeance. Basically the same thing, I'm just using two different words as synonyms. Big word for me. Anyway, blue hats use revenge as their sole purpose to be able to do what white hats do. They try and patch everything up to make sure black hats can't get in. Maybe they've been people who've had their data stolen before. Maybe they are reformed black hats who've again been attacked by other black hats, and they just want to reform and then attack back. Maybe that's a possibility, and that's why I kind of put them in the middle ground, because revenge is never something really to act out on as such. At least that's what many religions try to tell us, even though they blow each other up. I'm going to get banned for that. But you get the point I'm trying to make. They're doing it out of revenge, which is bad to an extent, but they are actively trying to help companies and stuff like that stay more secure. So it is a middle ground, it's a cagey area. The other type is red hats. Red hats are the ones that could arguably be in the harm category, because these guys are hacktivists and the vigilantes. So a great example would be Anonymous. Anonymous started off as a trolling group on 4chan before moving into more social, economic and political causes to try and prove their point or make a point. They most notably hacked into the Russian government during the Ukrainian attack of 2014. Eventually Russia would settle for Crimea in that conflict. Obviously now they're wanting a lot more than that. Maybe we need an Anonymous back to do it. But basically they hacked into the Russian government and tried to limit what the Russian government could do as a point to stand up against something they didn't believe in. But Red Hats aren't just for doing that or proving a point socially. Anonymous is just one substrain. They act unlawfully, unlike Blue Hats, and they are going directly for the Black Hat's resources and personality and everything. They're firstly trying to find out who the Black Hat is, but they're acting again as a vigilante. They're going after them directly. They're not... If there was a massive hack in the Russian government, for example, a Red Hat who is in support of Russia wouldn't ask the Russian government for permission. He would just go for it. And that's what a Red Hat does. They go for it unlawfully without permission, use whatever tactics they desire, and ultimately try and destroy the Black Hat's fame, fortune, notoriety, everything that they can possibly hold dear to them, including but not limited to their resources and their own hacking systems. That is what Red Hats is designed to do. You can kind of see why I put them in the middle ground, because yes, they're doing a fundamentally good thing by getting rid of the bad hackers, the criminals, but they're doing it in a really unlawful way. So they're not acting within the law, but they are getting rid of the issue. That is where kind of you blur the lines. And also with Red Hats, technically you can't say that it's a good intentioned Red Hat or a bad intentioned Red Hat, because they are just doing what they believe in, whether it be good or bad. They're just doing it because they disagree or agree with one party more than the other. I hope that makes sense. I was kind of weighing it up there like a balance, like a dance. But that is all the information that I have for you today. If you did enjoy, leave a like, subscribe and all of that. I'd be very much appreciative of anything that you can do for me. Any burning questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. And indeed, if there is anyone who has the answer already, I'd be very grateful if you could just provide that for me. Anything further, let me know. If you want me to do a deep dive into Astra, for example, or Anonymous, or anyone I've mentioned throughout this video, again, feel free to let me know. But until the next video, thank you so much for watching this one, and goodbye for now.